It is wonderful to see all of you at Medgar College. My name is Patrick Gaspard, and I am honored to be the chair of this Commission on Government Efficiency. We're here today because all of us know and understand that New Yorkers deserve and need a government of the possible, one that can help build urgent infrastructure, promote small business growth, and make the city more livable and accessible for all who are in it. The task we're going to undertake is a complete top to bottom review of the entire charter of the city of New York to build that 21st century government that New Yorkers need. Once we conclude our process, we'll make a set of recommendations to all New York, to the mayor and to all New Yorkers that will then appear on the ballot in November. And only if voters agree with those changes at an election will any of those changes come into effect with the full force of the law. I know that I speak for my fellow commissioners when I say that we're all committed to hearing from a broad cross-section of New Yorkers and to pursue the very best ideas that come before us, no matter what the source of those ideas are. This is a nonpartisan commission that I'm really proud to be a part of because it represents the very finest of New York public service. It's an independent commission, and it's comprised of New Yorkers who have volunteered their time over the last many weeks to attend hearings across the city. To date, we have had several hearings that have been attended by more than 650 New Yorkers. Over 220 of them have submitted written testimony to this commission. We have engaged in over 14 hours of live testimony at those hearings, and I'm excited to see what you will contribute to this process. Joining me in this task are 14 other commissioners. They are Vice Chair Emma Wolf, Marco Cadion, Kapil Langani, Ruth Messenger, Theodore Moore, Esther Rosario, Barika Williams. Attending virtually tonight are Commissioners Henry Garrido, Mark Shore, Kathy Weil, and absent this evening, but important voting members of this commission are Secretary of the Commission Susan Kang, Dawn Pinnock, Carlina Rivera, Anna Oliveira. Although, as I said, we will be considering the entirety of the New York City charter, we're looking in particular at the processes and procedures in the charter that can be updated and need to be updated to deliver a more efficient government to serve New Yorkers with excellence. Towards that end, today, we are focusing on unlocking public space. Public space is about how we all live together. It's connective tissue, the places where we see each other, the places where we hear each other, the places that we're able to convene, and certainly spaces, infrastructure like this one. As we welcome testimony that has that specificity of focus, we are also holding space open for any testimony on any issues that impact the charter directly. In the hearings that we've been privileged to preside over in the last several weeks, we've had remarkable New Yorkers, small business owners, folks who are working in the healthcare industry, everyday working New Yorkers who are consumers of public services who have been come and testify on things that are not specifically charter related, and the excellent staff that we have at COGE are taking in their information because there are a set of recommendations separate and apart from our charter recommendations that will go to the mayor and to the commissioners of agencies to help them appreciate how New Yorkers are experiencing the delivery of services and their interface with those agencies to look for means of improvement that are outside of the charter purview. Tonight, as we go through this hearing, we're going to begin with some expert testimony that we have from the Department of Citywide Administrative Services on unlocking public space. And then we'll have additional testimony we'll have questions from the commission, and there's additional testimony that we'll receive from the fire department of New York as well. For members of the public, when I call your name and I ask you to come to testify, I will invite you in pairs, whether you're in person or online. We'll cycle back and forth based on the questions and the frequency of sign-ons online. We'll go back and forth between those who are in the room and those who are joining us remotely. I will ask that you observe the 3-minute clock that you can see right here for your testimony. You're not to exceed the 3 minutes. I'm going to press you to really adhere to that, to really observe that, so that we can get as much testimony in as possible during the course of this evening. I'd like to ask the commission, members of the commission, to hold off on a vote to approve the minutes of our last meeting. We'll push that towards the end of this so that we can move directly into testimony following our delay. I know that we are joined this evening by the commissioner from the Department of Investigations as well, who I will invite to testify at the very top of this hearing, and then we'll turn to our experts. Commissioner, if you're present, Nadia Shahata, I welcome you to begin this hearing. And again, I apologize for the technical delay that we had at the very start. Good evening, Commissioner.
Evening. Good evening. My name is Nadia Shahata, and I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Investigation. Thank you to Chair Gaspard and all the Commission members for this opportunity to discuss several proposals that would further strengthen the independence of DOI, the city's Inspector General that investigates corruption, fraud, waste, and abuse involving New York City government. DOI provides robust oversight by conducting objective, fact-finding investigations, holding responsible those who seek to compromise the integrity of city government, and issuing recommendations for policy and procedural reforms. Our broad oversight and ability to follow the facts wherever they lead are unlike any other oversight agency in New York City. Corruption in city government inherently undercuts efficiency and the ability of government to reach and positively impact everyday New Yorkers. Consistently through our investigations, DOI sees how this plays out. Every taxpayer dollar that a vendor fraudulently overbills the city is a dollar that is not being spent on city services. Each inspection that is bumped to the front of the line because an inspector takes a bribe means that other small businesses and homeowners who play by the rules have to wait longer for their turn. And each time an agency or a senior city official violates the laws, rules, and regulations governing their conduct, it erodes New Yorkers' faith and trust in their city government. DOI exists to ensure accountability, to identify and prevent waste, incompetence, and corruption, and to prompt government reform in real time. DOI's investigations and factual findings can lead to criminal prosecutions, disciplinary proceedings, or other administrative actions. Where relevant and appropriate based on these findings, DOI also drives reform by making policy and procedure recommendations to city agencies aimed at addressing corruption vulnerabilities or otherwise improving government efficiency. In addition to criminal and disciplinary investigations, DOI investigates potential conflicts of interest that may result in referrals to the Conflicts of Interest Board, conducts background investigations for certain city employees, such as those in high-level and sensitive positions, provides vendor name checks of city-funded vendors to agency procurement officers, and oversees integrity monitorships of certain integrity-compromised vendors or large-scale city projects. Our public reports provide critical transparency about city government and enhance the public's confidence by ensuring that corruption risks and inefficiencies are brought to light and appropriately addressed. Through these functions, DOI plays an indispensable role in ensuring the accountability of city government. We are the investigatory body for the COIB and thus bear almost sole responsibility for investigating conflict of interest cases. Both local and federal prosecutors routinely seek our expertise by partnering with us on public corruption investigations. And our investigations lead to policy recommendations that are grounded in actual, tangible, identified frauds on city programs, rather than the more traditional auditing work done by other oversight entities like the comptroller. DOI's independence.
Commissioner,
Yes.
I'm really sorry to interrupt your testimony, but apparently your microphone is a little too far away from you, and that is making it difficult for those who are online to be able to hear all the important things you're saying.
Apologies.
Right,
Hopefully
well,
this is better.
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
DOI's independence from one of the very entities it oversees, City Hall, is at the heart of all the work we do. It instills public confidence in our work, ensuring that our findings are unbiased, free from undue influence, and based solely on the facts and the best interests of the city. DOI's independence is already supported by the city's charter and a number of executive orders, and the agency has maintained its independence throughout our 150-year history. I am here to urge the Commission to consider 4 additional changes that would strengthen DOI's independence and which are also aligned with best practices within the oversight and inspector general profession and the mission of this Commission. These proposals are not new. My predecessor, Commissioner Jocelyn Strouber, put them forth to the Commission to Strengthen Local Democracy just over 1 year ago. That commission broadly adopted the proposals in its final report to wide public support. There are 4 core proposals, each of which would require a change in the city charter. First, DOI should be afforded budget independence to reduce the risk of City Hall or the City Council interference or retaliation against DOI through control of the agency's budget and staffing. To be clear, I am not suggesting that DOI has been the target of retaliation in the budget process during my brief tenure or during Commissioner Strouber's tenure. However, I believe it is fair to say that our budgetary needs have not been made a priority in light of the severe and significant cuts that the agency has faced over the past 5 years and continues to face. These budgetary challenges have significantly impacted DOI's ability to hire and to retain employees, and the constant shifts in the city's approach to hiring have made long-term planning with respect to staffing difficult, if not impossible. The approval process for hiring, promotions, or raises other than personal services spending and capital funding is generally burdensome and time-consuming, including for requests within our existing budget. It also hinders our ability to conduct proactive investigations, such as reviews of large amounts of data, that allow us to identify inefficiencies and waste early on. In advance of putting forth these proposals last year, DOI conducted a preliminary analysis regarding the best model for an independent budget and concluded that an appropriate and independent budget is best established by determining DOI's budget as a percentage of the city budget. This would not be a novel approach. The Inspector General for the City of Chicago's budget is set in this way, for example, as is the New Orleans Office of the Inspector General. It is also important to note that budgetary independence for oversight agencies is a feature of many city institutions, such as the City Campaign Finance Board, which sets its own budget, and the Independent Budget Office, whose funding is a set percentage of the budget of the Office of Management and Budget. Funding DOI at an appropriate percentage of the city budget and giving DOI full control over its hiring and spending would safeguard DOI's independence and reinforce the city's commitment to rooting out and preventing fraud, waste, and abuse. DOI initially proposed that the agency should be funded at approximately 7 to 8 1/100% of the city's budget, and the Commission to Strengthen Local Democracy ultimately adopted a proposal of 6 1/100% of the city budget, which would bring DOI's budget back to roughly the proportion of the city budget it was in fiscal year 2021. That would be a 0.06% of the more than $124.7 billion that the city plans on spending in fiscal year 2027, or $74.8 million, which in our view is a modest investment in absolute terms and relative to the value DOI provides. By comparison, the Inspector General for the City of Chicago's budget is fixed at 0.14% of Chicago's budget, almost 2.5 times higher than our requested benchmark.
Commissioner, I'm going to abuse the privilege for just a moment
Sure.
of having the imaginary gavel. I know that your point on independent budgeting is your first of 4 different points. I wonder if you could just give us the top line of those points, given that you're submitting the testimony, and I can make a commitment to you to meet with you, and I'm sure other members of the commission will want to engage directly with you as well for a more fulsome sense of the challenges and the opportunities that you see in this charter reform.
Sure. Our second proposal is that the charter should be amended to expand and strengthen the control controls around the mayor's authority to remove the DOI commissioner. And essentially, it would be a removal for cause with an opportunity for a public hearing and a statement of reasons from the mayor as well. The third proposal is that the charter should establish a tenure of 5 years for the DOI commissioner, so that the commissioner's term would span administrations, thereby limiting the risk that a DOI commissioner would be subject to improper influence or retaliation by any mayoral administration. And the fourth is that the charter should be amended to codify some of the provisions and authorities granted to DOI through the mayoral executive orders. In particular, we'd ask for consideration of putting in the charter employees' obligation to cooperate with DOI, the consolidation of all agencies' inspectors general within DOI, and DOI's access to agency data and records. In the interest of time, I will conclude with the following. Former DOI Commissioner Longani noted in one of this commission's earlier meetings that New York City's oversight system is among the best in the country, a comment that I wholeheartedly agree with, and urge the city to continue advancing through the reforms I discussed. When Mayor Mamdani nominated me to lead DOI, he described a new era of government where my appointment would hold city government to the highest standard as well as, and I quote, help usher in a new era of accountability as we build a government that New Yorkers can trust, unquote. The reforms I outlined earlier do just that. They were adopted by the previous Charter Revision Commission and ensure New York City continues to be at the forefront of this important area. Strengthening DOI's independence is part of that new era of accountability and a new era of government that fully embraces the value of oversight and its ability to protect and improve city government. I want to thank the commission for considering these changes and of course would be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner, thank you so much for that testimony. My apologies again for having to compel you to present it in an abbreviated fashion. I'd like to ask whether or not any of our commissioners have any questions for you.
I do. Commissioner, thank you. First of all, thank you for getting this to us in advance. Thank you for how clear it is. Thank you for having very specific charter relevant recommendations. I'm a big supporter of the percentage set aside since I had something to do with the set aside for the Independent Budget Office, whenever years that was, 30 years ago. I would like a little more information from you either now if the chair allows or in writing about the items in your fourth proposal, which sound all like things we could codify. And I'm particularly interested in obviously we should codify people's obligation to cooperate with you, but I'm particularly interested in the consolidation of all agencies inspectors general, because I'm sort of interested in how that works. You can't do the whole city, obviously. Out of one office, every agency has an inspector general, and I'm just sort of interested in how that part of the system has been working and why you recommend bringing them all together, or what you envision us doing.
Yeah, so this is already, sorry.
No, please, yeah, brief response, please.
This is already in existence right now.
Okay.
By executive order.
Yep.
All of the inspectors general are within DOI at this time. And so this would just be to codify that in the city charter. So it's been ongoing for quite some time. It's working quite well, and we'd just like to see it codified in the charter.
Thank you.
Theodore, please.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Wanted to ask a quick question on the budget independence. I understand the need to kind of create a budget floor so that there's guaranteed funding every year. Is there a possibility that a proposal like this also creates a budget ceiling, and then in years when there is more need, you would have that and not be able to go above that? Could you explain like what would necessarily be done in a year where maybe we saw a need for DOI to have more funding, but there's that percentage in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think were that to be the case, we would be able to engage in the sort of advocacy we currently engage in with respect to our budget every year, where we are putting forth what our needs are. And so I don't think this would limit our ability to do that, should we need more funding. But Honestly, to get the 0.06% would be a game changer for us because it would really establish that minimum, which is significantly above what our current budget is, that it would make a huge difference in our ability to conduct the oversight that the city charter expects of us.
Great. Thank you so much, Commissioner, for your testimony. And again, I'm very much looking forward to the conversations that we will soon have about your recommendations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to now move to our expert testimony on our public infrastructure. We'll start with PJ Berg, Deputy Commissioner of Real Estate Services from the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. And that will be followed by testimony from Fabricio Caro, Chief of Staff to the Commissioner of the Fire Department.
Good evening, Chair Gaspard, Commissioners and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of the New York City Department of Citywide Administrative Services, or DCAS. My name is PJ Berg, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Real Estate Services. DCAS is responsible for supporting the real estate needs of our city government through acquisition, leasing, and management of property used to deliver essential public services. We oversee 56 public buildings and approximately 24 million square feet of leased space, operational facilities, courts, municipal assets, and offices. Our agency also manages the city's surplus property portfolio. We have a disposition program, meaning the process by which we sell or lease land that we no longer use, which helps return underutilized properties to productive use while generating revenue and putting properties on the tax rolls. DCAS owns approximately 1,800 of these surplus properties, such as small vacant lots, parking lots, and a few abandoned buildings unsuitable for city use. These properties continue to require maintenance. For instance, snow and ice removal, fencing, pest control, tree pruning, it goes on. DCAS does our best to maintain these properties, but given the scale of what we have to manage, they often fall into disrepair and can become an eyesore for neighbors and the surrounding community. Brought some photos. And someone from, oh, there we go. So we have vacant parcels with a recurring need for trash and vegetation removal, tree maintenance, dilapidated vacant facilities that can't serve agency needs right now and languish in our portfolio, and city-owned lots that are useful to nearby community-based organizations, and we want to let them use them, but the onerous process for leasing out the property, even for a term of only a few years, impedes the city from entering into sensible agreements with our neighborhood partners. These examples represent missed opportunities both for the city, which loses out on income, and adjacent homeowners of businesses which miss out on putting the property to productive use. So as many of you know, DCAS must obtain approval under Charter Section 197C or ULURP to sell or lease surplus property. Then we also have to take projects through a second approval process under Charter Section 824 in the business terms of the sale or lease. The secondary approval process can add many months to a project. Let me be clear, oversight and public input are critical, but the commission should study whether these processes achieve either of these goals. Since December 22, DCAS has held 34 of these Section 824 hearings and received testimony in only 2. In both of those hearings, the testimony supported our disposition. The administrative requirements associated with these hearings also extend transaction timelines. I will skip over the number of days for each step in the interest of time, but it's many days. I just want to say it's a one-size-fits-all charter requirement that applies whether we're leasing out a small lot, transferring development rights, or selling one of our crown jewel multi-million-dollar properties. Moving on to my second point, current laws also place the city at a competitive disadvantage when we seek to lease office space for our municipal workforce. Charter Section 195 requires the City Planning Commission to hold a hearing and approve office leases and purchases, even if the city is moving office workers into an existing commercial office building with no change of use. After the City Planning Commission approves the office space acquisition, we're back to that 824 hearing. and multiple other steps. All told, this series of notifications and reviews adds up to more than 3 months, and in practice, it can delay entering into an office lease for far longer due to prep time. In a recent case, the approvals added a year to our leasing process. Because no private entity is subject to these requirements, the city's at a competitive disadvantage when looking for office space, resulting in more expensive rents and causing us to lose out on properties that would have been financially or programmatically advantageous to the city. I want to emphasize these challenges are not superficial. DCAS is currently managing approximately 100 active agency requests for new spaces that they would use to deliver policy goals. And over the next 3 years, we have 130 existing leases scheduled to expire that need to be renewed or moved. When the lease transaction process is delayed, the city often finds itself as a holdover tenant, paying penalty rent that exceeds market value, an avoidable cost borne by taxpayers. And we're currently holding over on approximately 50 leases where we need a solution. The volume of leasing activity and need to reduce the city's reliance on holdover leases underscores the importance and necessity of an efficient leasing process. Just to share some recent examples where we've lost opportunities to secure desirable space, and I do want to exclude identifying details because we remain in the market for negotiated solutions. We were in advanced talks to lease office space for a city agency. The building ended up changing owners before we could execute the lease, and the new owner was not interested in leasing to the city. Similarly, we were far along in a lease negotiation, but the owner had an impending financing deadline and then ultimately had to decide to reposition the building instead of leasing to the city. Again, public input and accountability are essential, but the charter's current requirements, which involve a series of poorly attended hearings, cause delay without balancing a clear corresponding benefit. So I'm here today to ask the Charter Revision Commission to take the opportunity to modernize these provisions and ensure that the city can operate with speed, efficiency, and flexibility. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us, Deputy Commissioner. Are you able to quantify in budget terms what we think the impact has been over the course of the last few years of these delays and the other obstacles that you described?
On our sale program, in FY25, we spent about $2 million maintaining overgrown surplus lots that we would rather not own. And frankly, that number should have been higher because neighbors deserved better maintained properties than what we were able to deliver. And on leases, I mentioned that we're in holdover on 50 leases, and holdover rent is between 25 and 50% above market. So sometimes we're perversely having to stay put because we don't have approval to move, but the landlord knows that we're in a tough spot.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, commissioners.
Mayor, go ahead.
Just following up on the chair's question. So you said there's 50 holdover leases currently.
Mhm.
Are you suggesting that the commission should consider eliminating those second hearing, those 824 hearings?
I think that's a worthy idea to consider, yes.
With replacing it with something else, or just eliminate them altogether?
So look, we remain subject first to budgeting. When we go out to look for leases, agencies are working within a budget, and we know what budget. That budget is something that the city council works hard to oversee, and agencies remain subject to council oversight on that. In addition, the comptroller audits DCAS and registers every lease, because a lease, like every city contract, has to be registered to become effective. So I would submit that we remain under a lot of oversight, but we're happy to discuss with the commission what additional, measures could be taken in lieu of an 824 hearing.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. That was very, very clear, and I'm delighted if we could make that process more efficient. I just one question from old history, and it might be irrelevant to this, but does it remain possible for the city to make a determination that in some instances it will make a property available to a not-for-profit organization or a community-based organization for other than highest and best rent?
Yes, with a lot of restrictions, including it has to be terminable at will, which really handcuffs organizations that want to make capital improvements.
But I would love to get some more information about that, having lived through an era when we actually turned over a lot of city-owned buildings to tenants quite successfully for no money at all.
Sure, we'd be happy to give you more details on our CBO programs.
Thank you.
Please.
So I guess two questions. So on the Charter 197C, understanding that there's a desire to sort of break apart the fact that potentially there's two ULURP points. So one at disposition and then a second one if the property needs to go through an additional ULURP to change its FAR or uses. Is there any scenario I guess I want to ask, you also talked about your crown jewels. So I want to understand how many crown jewels are there, and would you all propose using or a different process for your crown jewels as opposed to most of the maybe probably smaller, more standard properties?
I think every New Yorker would have a different answer to how many crown jewels there
That's fair.
are. So you make a great point, which is that disposition of city property on its own is a 197C ULURP action. And change of use, change of zoning is another ULURP action. And so that is, worthy of studying, whether both of those need to apply. And then the other point is that it's a one size fits all disposition ULURP, whether DCAS is trying to lease the parking lot to a religious school for their school buses for a term of 3 years, or we're trying to sell a crown jewel.
Do you think, do you have data on that you could provide to the commission on square footage of the different sizes and or building square footage for lots that have existing buildings on them? I think it would just be helpful for us to understand how much these are small lots versus larger parcels versus big buildings and small buildings.
Absolutely. So I mentioned that we have 1,800 surplus properties, and we can absolutely get some data to you on the size. And none of those surplus properties, by the way, contain valuable buildings.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you so very much, PJ. I understand that the chief of staff to the commissioner of the FDNY's statement or presentation will augment some of what you said. So I'd ask you to please stay with us, PJ, in case there's any need for you to come back in.
I'd be delighted to.
Thank you. Fabricio, and forgive me if I mispronounce your first or last name, Fabricio Caro, Chief of Staff to Commissioner of FDNY, joining us virtually.
Yes, good evening. Do you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you, yes.
Perfect. Apologies because I'm in commute, but I did want to take the opportunity to testify. So good evening, Chair Gaspard and members of the commission. My name is Fabricio Caro, Chief of Staff to the Fire Commissioner FDNY. I'm testifying this evening in support of the development rights proposal. It's simple. I mean, with the FDNY, we love being part of the community. And essentially, as a staple in the community, as public first responders, we will not be leaving. FDNY has a number of landmarked firehouses, which are iconic buildings that are fixtures of their neighborhoods. City laws authorize a process for landmark buildings to sell their unused development rights. We would like to use this process to fund maintenance of our landmarked firehouses. In 2024, the zoning resolution was amended to provide a more streamlined approval process for transfers of development rights from individual landmarks, but the city is not able to make use of this streamlined process, leaving city-owned landmarks at a unique disadvantage. The transfer of development rights requires a maintenance program. This would help ensure that the sale of rights will inure to the benefit of our landmarks by providing financial assistance to help repair and ensure the long-term maintenance of our landmarks. This gives FDNY the funding opportunity to enhance our firehouses and to continue to maintain our landmark buildings and have them be part of the community for many years. Again, thank you for the opportunity to basically be able to provide testimony today. I'll take any questions.
Thank you so much, Fabricio. Any questions, please?
Thank you. I just want to clarify. So understanding and appreciating the desire to be able to support landmark firehouses. Wanting to understand for the for the TDR, for the transfer development rights, is this already baked in, or would after the sale go through an additional process to approve transfer of development rights? Is it already built into these sites and there has already been development rights transferred to them that you all want to utilize? Or would you want to dispose of the site that then potentially is eligible for new development rights?
I think it's and repeat it again, because you were breaking up a little bit.
So I'm trying to understand if the development rights have already been provided to the lot, and you all want to sell to be able to take advantage of that, or if you're selling and then that site can receive development rights. What I'm trying to understand is, could you be disposing of this site and then the neighborhood have something that is, 3 to 5 additional FAR with no public process? Or would there still be required a public process in order for the TDR to happen?
I would have to confirm with our facilities and our budget folks, and I could follow up with you on that. I don't have that information in front of me.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you both for your testimony. We very much look forward to continued engagement with you on these issues. Thank you. We'll now turn to testimony from the public. I will call you 2 at a time to testify. And again, we'll ask you to pay close attention to the 3-minute countdown clock. The first 2 members of the public, one is an old friend, Ronald Schiffman and Eve Barron. I shouldn't say one is an old friend. I should say one is like a known legend.
Good.
I think old is very appropriate.
Ron, it's so very exciting to see you. It's great to see you.
My name is Ron Schiffman.
Let's pull the microphone closer.
First of all, I would really like to thank you all for playing the role that you're all playing. This commission and the membership of this commission is really very, I think, an example of the progressive nature of our government today, and it's something I really applaud. I've worked with community-based organizations for over 60 years, and I'm a professor emeritus at Pratt. I know many of you, so I'm not going to go into detail about who I am. But I urge this commission to define government efficiency not simply as a faster approvals or fewer procedural steps, but as the capacity of public institutions to deliver justice, repair longstanding inequities, and serve all New Yorkers. As part of the charter revision, the commission should examine structure, accountability, and public obligations of quasi-independent agencies such as the New York City Economic Development Corporation and other public benefit or development authorities. These entities exercise public powers, control or influence public land, and shape the city's economic future, but often they're not accountable. Their mandates must therefore be aligned with economic, racial, and environmental justice, with the principle that housing is a right, not just a commodity, and with the obligation that public land and public authority be there to benefit all New Yorkers, not only those that are powerful or well-connected. Their action should also be governed by clear environmental justice principles, meaning community accountability, respect for indigenous and community-based organizations, the histories and leadership wherever that public decision affect land, water, culture, and community life. The commission should also support the city's ability to capture publicly created value for public purposes. The sale of public land should be for the public benefit, not just for the benefiting a few. One important tool that I would suggest this city begin to take hold of is to look at New York State's existing stock transfer tax, a tax on financial transactions. The mechanism already exists, but the revenue is rebated rather than dedicated to urgent public needs. a small financial transaction tax, roughly 1/10 of 1%, exists on the books. We collect it every day, but we rebate it. That would be a minimal tax on financial transactions that could benefit and allow for us to rehabilitate public housing, to develop the kind of infrastructure we need to build climate resilience and then the industrial capacity to build our future. That revenue should be used for
Ron, you're at 3 minutes, but I'm going to allow you to
I have just
conclude on
a
this.
paragraphs more, all right? That revenue should be used for capital investments the private market will not make on its own. This is also essential in the age of artificial intelligence. AI and automation may create enormous wealth, but without public action, that wealth will be concentrated among a few corporations and investors, while workers and communities face growing insecurity. I would suggest that what we basically do here is look at how we can use our charter to democratize capital and to make sure that people have access to capital, not only to jobs, because whenever we invest something within a community, it should benefit that community and expand its opportunity for business development and business ownership. I urge the commission to recommend charter changes and related state and local actions that strengthen public accountability, protect public land, capture publicly created value, and advance environmental justice. I have a full testimony, which I'll be willing to submit
Thank
to you. And also a separate memo I developed for a community-based group in Sunset Park on what democratization of capital really means and how we can go about doing it. So I thank you for the privilege to meet with you all, and I really applaud what you're doing.
Thank you for the testimony and thank you for the additional submission. And we'll take up questions with you, Ron, after Eve has an opportunity to testify. No, let's just slide it over.
Thanks for setting the tone, Ron, and thank you, Commissioner members, for your service. I'm Eve Barron. I'm an urban planner and a professor at Pratt Institute. I'm a member of the New York City Civic Engagement Commission, which itself was a product of the 2018 Charter Revision Commission process. I'm a member of the Collective for Community Culture and the Environment, a group of women planners, architects, and designers who work to promote equity and sustainability in New York City. We've done planning projects across the city with community groups and across the region. I'm here representing the collective to talk about, surprise, the value of good urban planning, planning that begins with community engagement and results in implementation and government accountability. So we're all here today at Medgar Evers College, and this college would not exist without the grassroots organizing efforts of Central Brooklyn residents who wanted a voice in the future of their neighborhood. They knew that quality local education was key to opportunity and social mobility. This college stands as a tribute to grassroots planning and a symbol of the connection between the civil rights movement and the community development movement. Some lessons from these movements are implicit in the 1989 Charter Revision Commission reforms. Those historic transformations of our charter, which were fueled by the mandate of democratization, gave us Section 197A. Section 197A, in theory, is quite a powerful tool for New Yorkers to engage in local planning decisions. It allows community boards, among other entities, to create plans for development, growth, and improvement at the local level. 11 197A plans have been created by community boards since then. These plans stand as examples of some of the most holistic planning undertaken in the city in some of the city's most underserved areas. So we have the charter mechanisms to enable comprehensive neighborhood planning. What we don't have are the planning staff and resources at the community level or the guarantee of government to implement plans. What we also lack is a citywide comprehensive plan, which makes us the outlier among most major world cities. A comprehensive planning framework could connect neighborhood plans to citywide goals so that communities planning for their own futures are contributing to, not competing with, a shared vision for the city. And the city itself could set out a holistic agenda of goals for climate response, growth and development, and social and racial justice. So the Collective for Community Culture and the Environment and scores of other activists, community boards, community groups, civic and government leaders worked in coalition to develop draft charter changes focusing on requiring the city to create a 197E plan. This is a citywide planning framework that connects goals, policies, local plans, and budget decisions. Alongside the 197E plan, we also need charter changes to ensure diverse representation on community boards, provide communities with planning resources, and give 197A and other local plans more certainty of implementation. Taking these steps will go far toward restoring trust, and trust is at the heart of efficient and functional government. So I want to thank you again, and I'm going to provide more detailed written testimony.
Thank you so much, Eve. Commissioners, questions? Ruth?
First of all, thank you. Thank you. My Borough President's Office staff to 197As, both of which were successful. So I'm delighted to hear that. Ron, I am gobsmacked by the information that we actually rebate these tax. Under what provision do we rebate the tax?
In 1905, the state of New York created a stock transfer tax.
Right.
Today, that tax would generate about $16 billion a year. In 19.
Ron, I'm sorry. Did you say 60 or 16?
$16 billion a year.
60.
It is 1/10 of 1% of a stock transfer. It is instantly, the law is still on the books today. It's collected daily. It's rebated instantly.
Why or how?
In 1982 or 83, Mayor Koch felt that the stock market might leave New York City, and as a result, they began to rebate it a certain percentage each year. And by 1983, it was 100%. That bill, all it needs to do is to abolish the rebate. And everybody today will argue that the stock market might leave. It's ridiculous because it is 1/10 of 1%. It's infinitesimal. London has it. Hong Kong has it. A number of other countries have it at much greater than 1/10 of 1%.
No, I'm well familiar with the stock transfer tax proposals. I was an advocate of many of them, but I didn't realize that there was actually something that was collected and rebated. And
Yeah.
Is it a law that rebates it? Is it a practice that rebates it?
It's a practice. I think it needs to be amended and taken away, but it's forgiven now. And that was an action of the state legislature. There are about 40 members of the assembly that are supporting changes in it. I think it needs mayoral attention. It needs the city's attention. If we dedicated that to the capital budget of the city of New York, it would improve the living conditions in the city for everybody, including some of the wealthy. And by the way, it's a great way to tax the wealthy is by taxing financial transactions. They can't hire a tax accountant to evade it. It's instantly collected by a federal agency. And it could be done simply, and I could send you a separate memo on how it could be done. But people need the political courage to stand up to what they think is an argument against it. I just want
to be clear on that point, Ron, right? Some of us have worked on this issue before, and I understood that it would bring 14 to 16 billion dollars in revenue to the city. But I also understood, and you'll have to correct my misunderstanding or my miscomprehension of the history, but I understood that this was taken up as part of the reforms following the fiscal crisis in the city. And because it's an agreement between the city and the state, that state law has to be passed for the rebating, that the city can't just enact a measure through the charter.
The city can't just enact, but they can request the state to do it.
Okay.
And they're not doing that at the moment. And some of the money would accrue to the state. It would also, there was some opposition to changing it by some of the trade unions and pensions because they were afraid it would affect the pension returns. In reality, it'll generate so much more if it's invested and dedicated to capital investment, because it will lead to, securing us against climate change. It'll help us renovate our public housing stock immediately without leading to the privatization of public housing. It would enable us to use some of our waterfronts for really creating a blue highway system rather than giving it away for nothing for private development and the wrong kind of housing development at this point in time.
Mr. Chairman, can we just ask Ron to give us a
Please.
separate memo just on that, the
Yeah.
history and the process that would be required?
I'll do it.
Everything you just said.
Thank you.
I
Please.
just, I wanted to say, Ron and Eve, thank you for all of your years of work, really seeding justice-oriented urban planning and community development here in New York City. So just wanted to start with that. Eve, I wanted to ask specifically if you have more details on the 197E proposal in your testimony, right? 197A is a thing that people used to use, but by and large now nobody does it because you're going to propose in that 197A plan and it's never going to go anywhere, right? And that's we're sort of where we are now. So we've, in a sense, created the mechanism to do community-based community-based planning, and then set it aside and created government systems and structures where people know that it's not going to move forward. So I'm just curious on wanting to understand this, like 197E, more a citywide plan, and what you all how you all are envisioning that, and ensuring that it doesn't also become potentially sort of a antiquated piece that then government can continue to like obfuscate again.
Sure. Thanks. Thank you for your work as well. The 197A portion of the charter it's an unfunded mandate, and there's never been money set aside to do this type of planning, nor is there any enforcement or implementation mechanism within the charter. With those two revisions, I think 197A planning could actually, be a much more effective tool, and we already have it on the books. I think the last 30 some years of practice has shown what the failings are, but those, could be addressed within the charter. The 197E plan is a citywide planning framework, and it's actually we did draft some charter revision language, which I'd be happy to share with the commission. And that is predicated on, 197A plans and other citywide policies and goals, and sets out benchmarks and targets for growth that then communities have the ability to take up and plan for themselves with the proper planning resources.
I'd like to add one thing, and it refers to before the sale of public land. When I was on the commission, I had the honor of being appointed by David Dinkins. I was very concerned with the disposition of public land that didn't fit a framework or a plan. And as a result, in many cases, we would sell off land that could be assembled to create infill housing or community gardens or other purposes. I'm also concerned that we may sell off land that could be used for other kinds of public purposes. So it should meet and have a review by a public planning entity, and with the 197Cs and other ways of those plans really could inform the disposition. The BQX, the Cross Brooklyn Expressway, that's now being built, we sold off certain pieces of that land over the years for a ridiculous sum of money, and we undermined the ability to create a continuous freight line running through or a residential transportation network. We did the same along the Gowanus Canal. We have to make sure that when we dispose of land, we do it for a clear public purpose. And some of it may be to generate income, but land is too valuable to give away without really ascertaining how it fits a bigger picture.
Thank you, Ron. Marika, was that all? Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you both. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Eve, for that excellent testimony.
Who should I give this to? Who should I give?
Okay, I like this.
Commission staff will
Okay.
take that. And Ron, don't forget, I think that Ruth has given you some homework.
Okay.
To your
Well, we
additional
did.
submission.
What else is new?
Thank you so much. Caroline Donala and Nancy Wang, please join us. Caroline and Nancy. Caroline. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for holding these hearings. So I'm here to talk about the election process, which I think is, for me, more important than anything that we're looking at these days. I am a native New Yorker. I live in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, and I've been an independent voter for more than 40 years. I lived in California in the early 2000s when I volunteered on Proposition 14, which was passed, which set up a top two nonpartisan primary system for the whole state. It enabled every independent to vote in every round of voting. As we know, that round is critical. In many jurisdictions, it determines the outcome of the election. So we won that battle, and I think California is doing pretty well. They had a primary recently where more than 40% of registered voters participated. New York City's most recent Democratic primary had only about 17% participating. And by the way, as an independent, I was not allowed to vote in it. I moved back to New York in 2011, and I've been disturbed by my inability to significantly impact on New York City's elections because of my status as an unaffiliated independent voter. Voting in an open primary would give me a chance to voice my concerns through the ballot box in the first round of municipal elections. Increasingly, our elected officials represent a small segment of the city. Open primaries will increase voter participation, and isn't that what democracy is supposed to be about? Thank you.
Thank you so very much for your testimony, Caroline. I'm hoping that someone can help us here, but our countdown clock is frozen. Thank you. Please, Nancy.
Thank you to the Commission for the opportunity to testify. My name is Nancy Wang. I've been a product manager for 6 years, building technology products, first at Microsoft, and most recently, we're consulting for the state of Maryland. My work now focuses on how technology can be used to achieve the governor's aims of increasing economic mobility and reducing childhood poverty. The tech industry has learned many best practices from the government, for example, human-centered design. And today I want to talk about one practice in tech that our government could adopt from the tech industry: outcomes-based procurement evaluation. Outcomes-based procurement evaluation would assess contract performance based on the results achieved, rather than simply whether the required deliverables were completed. For example, the success of a government benefits modernization project might be measured in the reduction in applications completion time, increases in approval rates for eligible applicants, or decreases in application errors, not just whether the new digital form was completed. By defining these outcome measures upfront, agencies give vendors clear goals to optimize for and create accountability for delivering results. The city's My City initiative illustrates why this shift is needed. The project was intended to create a one-stop digital portal for New Yorkers to access government services, but after more than 4 years and over $100 million of spending, a comptroller audit showed that many of the core promises had yet to be realized. Outside of not meeting key requirements, such as the unification of city benefits under one common platform, the project also fell short of the outcomes it was designed to achieve. For example, due to the system's lack of basic eligibility checks for household income and children's ages, 46% of My City benefits applicants on the site were found ineligible in the 2 years since the initial site launch. A site chatbot that was provided to users with more benefits information was found to provide illegal and inaccurate advice, and the site loaded so slowly that it scored under 10 out of 100 for performance across mobile and desktop. At the end of 2025, the recommendation for fixing these issues was to request an additional $81 million of taxpayer money to maintain the existing site and add additional functionalities. As a taxpayer, I question why our government is planning to double the initial budget of a project that has still largely failed to improve New Yorkers' lives in any way. But as a technologist, I also see how my city exemplifies a broader risk in public procurement. When contracts are evaluated primarily on whether deliverables are completed, rather than whether intended outcomes were achieved, governments can spend significant taxpayer dollars without ensuring that those investments lead to meaningful public outcomes. If procurement had been evaluated not only on whether software was delivered, but also on outcomes such as reductions in application time, increases in successful benefits enrollment, or improvements in resident satisfaction, agencies would have had clear accountability for delivering meaningful public value.
You're at
may-
3 minutes, Nancy, if you can just conclude with this sentence.
Sounds good. New Yorkers need proof that the services that we pay for will make our lives better. Let's amend the charter to measure procurement outcomes and make that happen. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you both for your testimony. Questions, commissioners? For Carolina or Nancy? Thank you. You both should appreciate that on both of your issues on open primaries and the use of technology to deliver more efficient and excellent government. We've heard considerable testimony at our prior hearings. We're weighing all of it, of course, and it's informing our deliberations when we sit together as a commission. So just I hope you can appreciate that. Thank you both.
It's great to hear.
Selena Sue and Saunders Riffin, please join us. Selena and Saunders. Welcome.
Thank you so much for this commission and for the chance to speak today. My name is Selena Sue. I'm a CUNY professor focusing on community organizing and participatory democracy, the parent of a second grader in public school, and a volunteer researcher with the People's Budget Campaign. I'm thankful for a commission trying to recover the word efficiency's true meaning so that it's not just another code word for reckless weaponized austerity. Today, I ask for basic reforms towards making budgets accessible, legible, and comparable. First, budget documents currently obfuscate patterns of distribution in the city, both across programs and across neighborhoods. We need basic transparency on spending and staffing. Right now, the administration could lump together and mask a decrease in funding for high-impact, prevention-focused programs like violence interruption with an increase in funding for a completely different program in the same unit, or for lower-impact administrative overhead. I ask that the commission require budget function analysis across agencies. And we also need some spatial disaggregation. Community boards, for instance, could make immediate use of more transparent budgets. These boards submit statements of needs that city agencies have to respond to, and they already have soft powers via the city charter. Some have the information they need to submit detailed, clearly written budget priorities, and others submit statements of needs asking for district level information. This doesn't just obfuscate inequalities, it exacerbates them. Second, the public should help to inform how these budget function analyses are defined. As a member of the steering committee that first helped to implement participatory budgeting in New York City, I saw how incorporating more public input at the writing the rules design stage could have saved us many headaches later on. I appreciate the commission's attention to this issue and urge you to go further. We could then become a model for cities around the country and the world. While researching my latest book, Budget Justice, I learned that cities with transparent democratic budgets and processes like participatory budgeting raise significantly more tax revenues than cities with opaque ones, because people felt invested and confident in those budgets, helped to make government policies more efficient, and benefited from the better conditions that resulted from them. These reforms for budget transparency are a first step towards ensuring that New Yorkers can press for the programs we know we need most and which are most efficient. Thank you.
Thank you. Saunders?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Saunders Ruffin, and I'm a resident of the East Village. I work nearby at NISM, our city's emergency management agency, where I manage, excuse me, our monitoring and evaluation program. My views are my own and do not reflect my employer. In December 2025, 1 month after Mayor Zoran Mamdani won the mayor's race, another prominent New Yorker, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, sat for an interview with CNN to talk about his thoughts on Mamdani's victory. Instead of targeting the mayor-elect, Dimon issued a challenge. Show me policies that work and I'll stand behind you. Show me that we're tackling affordable housing. Show me that we're improving public safety. I agree with Dimon. To achieve total efficiency, that is to achieve maximum productivity with minimum wasted effort or expense, we need to know exactly how well we're doing so we know where to double down and increase spending or where to cut ties. That, in my opinion, is how we build trust with the public. Dimon ends that interview by saying, government has a lot of speaking up to do about what they're doing with your money. As a business person, I always ask myself, am I doing well before I ask for more? If we ask the public to entrust us with their tax dollars, we should be able to show them the effectiveness of those dollars. But here's the thing, as many public servants know, demonstrating success in our jobs isn't as easy as showing off a filled pothole. Those are easily measurable. Demonstrating to the public that the city is running well, and in my line of work, showing just how prepared the city is to face a hurricane, or like right now, a heat emergency, is more challenging, but one we can't shy away from. That brings me to my proposal. I believe we should codify language in the charter that establishes roles and responsibilities for creating, measuring, and reporting more meaningful and analytical performance metrics. So for some context, I'd like to highlight the mayor's management report that is found in section 12 of the charter. In that very report, I find that this is an excellent way for the public to sort of pop the hood of local government, see how we're doing. There are output metrics in that document. I don't think it's a sufficient proxy for government productivity. So I'll give you an example. One of 8 critical indicators in that report for my employer, NISM, and one often cited in budgetary hearings with NISM and City Council, is the number of participants at emergency preparedness education sessions per year. Last year, there were 34,000 participants alone. That's very impressive. What does that number reveal alone about the effectiveness of those emergency preparedness sessions? Did each participant feel like they were more prepared? Were they creating their own go bags? Were they meeting with their families to discuss what they learned? When you follow this line of questioning, you arrive at a more profound answer about how we're actually doing. So in closing, I encourage the commission to explore how we can institutionalize asking those kinds of questions beyond reporting static metrics, but establishing a mandate, conduct more rigorous research-based evaluation experiments across our government.
You're at time, Saunders.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll just close with this one quote. In establishing this commission, Mayor Mamdani said, let's restore faith in government by proving government can actually deliver. Let's create those systems to actually measure that delivery. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for your testimony. Questions, commissioners? Please.
Saunders, are you suggesting that we should consider updating those metrics? And if so, could you give a couple examples of ones that you would prioritize that would have maximum effect in terms of increasing efficiency and providing the public with the information you've just been talking about?
Certainly, yeah. And I can speak on behalf of personal experience here at emergency management. Of course, we have a strategic plan. And in that document, our leadership outlines priorities for the agency, right? What matters most when we're delivering for the public. In the example I gave about emergency preparedness, it's about evaluating preparedness. That's an abstract concept, not one that you can easily, with one single metric, demonstrate whether it's happening or not. So I would just advise that agencies across government, in prioritizing what matters most, focus on those particular metrics. And for example, I think, in my opinion, if we can tell the government with that extra dollar that we invest in that emergency preparedness session, we're seeing X, Y, or Z increase in quote unquote individual preparedness. But that level of analysis is something that I think would be profound in showing the public we're spending your dollars effectively. Thank you.
Thank you. Selena, my ears perked up when you said that you had written the book Budget Justice. Okay, so Does that, were you a member of the mayor's transition team? Okay. So, hmm, I want you to, if you could, just help us better appreciate the relationship between some of your scholarship on participatory budgeting and the pressure you think that we need to bring to bear on the charter to reform it in ways that will bring increased accountability. In your scholarship, you make the very um, very challenging and troubling point that opacity in our budget system is not a bug, but actually a strategic part of government budgeting in order to reduce accountability. And so I wonder if you could help us better understand how you're thinking about the charter in relationship to the accountability that your scholarship demands.
Thank you so much for asking me this question. I work with community groups, and I will say that it's not just big advocacy groups. I was thinking of, for instance, even the community garden that my block, that I'm a member of, how they look for numbers on composting um, every year, and they get upset if composting programs get cut. So they try to wade through the city budget, and it's like a 500-page PDF, and they can't figure out where to look for basic numbers. And they feel like they're told that austerity is inevitable. But even if the city is in a tough position and cuts are to be made, they just want to help inform where they're willing to make sacrifices and what they would want to prioritize. And this is a way in which I feel, not just I feel like what I learned through doing research, that opacity abets austerity and shows political choices to seem like politicians' our hands are tied when it's not necessarily the case. And promoting transparency helps to turn a vicious cycle in which there is a lot of anti-tax sentiment, and then government doesn't have enough resources to do a good job, into a virtuous one, whereby people really do raise more tax revenues when they believe in government.
Thank you so very much. Please, Theodore.
Just to Saunders, I was wondering, how do you deal with the need to collect better data and metrics going along with a lot of the agencies and service providers? Either one, don't have the capacity for the follow-up to collect that data, or two, don't collect information to do that follow-up for various reasons, one of them being like security and safety of the people that are using those services. So how do we marry those two needs along with the capacity issues and the lack of information to follow up?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, and I think it starts with actually understanding what that gap is. And so maybe the assessment here, or the first step here, is just understanding exactly what that capacity is. You know, speaking on behalf of my agency, we have that in-house evaluation team. I don't think that is, certainly among emergency management agencies, extremely rare. And the extent to which, you know, what are those existing capacities that I can't speak to across the government, but I would, you know, start there. Yeah. You bet.
Any additional questions? Thank you both for your testimony. We're really grateful for it. Our next participants will join us online, Olivia Goldberg and Paul Hoti. Olivia and Paul, are you both on?
Yes, hello.
Fantastic. Olivia, let's begin with you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm here today to present an issue that is very important to me, which is preservation of the city's tree canopy and how city agencies can more efficiently collaborate to that end. Isolation of the DDC, the DOT, and DPR has resulted in my experience, needless removal of many mature street trees throughout New York City, and often in neighborhoods that already experience the worst effects of the urban heat island. DPR foresters then spend many hours investigating damage and pursuing financial restitution, time which might otherwise be spent inspecting and caring for our city's street trees. It is difficult to accurately quantify the financial consequences of removing mature trees, but New Yorkers certainly experience the consequence of environmental benefits lost. I understand that these tree removals are often part of projects to improve infrastructure, but my question is, why do we as New Yorkers have to choose between tree canopy cover and functional infrastructure? I am an ISA certified arborist who works with trees in New York City. I often work as a third-party consultant for projects managed by the DDC, the DOT, and occasionally by DEP and DPR. This consulting work is a requirement.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Olivia, but it would be helpful for everyone if you would not use acronyms, but give us the complete name of the agencies that you're referring to.
Of
Thanks.
course, apologies, thank you.
Don't apologize.
Department for Design and Construction, Department of Transportation, the Department of Environmental Protection, and the Department of Parks and Recreation. And the Parks Department specifically is responsible for caring for New York City's street trees, as well as parks. I have witnessed harm to city-owned trees, both through carelessness on the part of contractors and by design when trees are removed due to conflicts with projects aimed at improving infrastructure. The most common examples are replacement of curbs and sidewalks. In my experience, most of this damage is preventable in the design stage by shifting excavation by as little as 6 inches to avoid tree roots. Implementation of more careful design using proven tree protection measures at our disposal today would certainly allow New Yorkers to retain vital canopy cover during many construction projects citywide. I have proof of this in the ongoing Department of Parks and Recreation project at Archie Spigner Park in Queens, which thoughtfully avoids the most important structural roots of nearby trees while providing an important stormwater drainage measure for the neighborhood. My recommendation is that Department of Design and Construction and the Department of Transportation have direct collaboration with the Parks Department regarding protection of trees during the design phase of construction projects. The Department of Parks and Recreation has proven that they are able to implement tree protection protocols that preserve trees during construction, and I believe that more direct collaboration at the earliest stages of these projects' design would certainly help New Yorkers see mature tree canopy retention and the many environmental benefits that come with it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Olivia. My apologies for having interrupted you. I just wanted to make sure that we were getting the full context of everything that you were providing. Thank you. Stay with us, Olivia. We may have some questions for you. Paul?
Hello, I'm a substitute teacher for the DOE, and I'm kind of what I have to say is actually, I think, a lot quicker than what everyone else kind of had to say. So I'm a substitute teacher. I was suspended from service in early May, and the department that handles, I mean, that's kind of what I'm here to talk about is I was not informed what I was suspended about, and I've dealt with this like 2 other times over the past like year and a half. And it's just very frustrating and inefficient. Hence the name of the the committee assembled here. I don't know how that works with the charter or whatever. I don't know what policy would have to be passed to address that. But in my time, just again as a substitute, it seems like the actual administration at the DOE is like understaffed. It seems like I remember I had a meeting with them in like September of last year, and the line was through the door, very long line, down to the sidewalk basically. And I remember commiserating with some of the people there. It's like, yeah, this is so frustrating. I remember people complaining about how it took them forever to get even accepted as a sub. Like they were nominated, and they have to go through this whole process, it takes forever. And so that's kind of it. I mean, I have no idea how that impacts the charter, but I figured I saw the meeting in my email. I checked to see if there was an update. There wasn't, but I saw this in my email for the DOE. and I figured I'd show up. And that's that.
Thank you. We appreciate that. You're right. It's not directly charter related, but your testimony is received. Any questions at all for Olivia and Paul or Olivia or Paul? No, great. Thank you. We appreciate both your inputs. And again, Olivia, I apologize for having interrupted you. Back to in person. Yvonne Murray and Vanessa Rudin. Welcome. Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Yvonne Murray, and I'm a registered independent voter. I came here this evening to appeal to this commission, requesting putting open primaries. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
Okay. Putting open primaries on the ballot for the citizens of New York City to vote on. As an independent, I have not been allowed to vote in the very important primary elections where for my tax dollars, I don't get the opportunity to participate. 85% of US cities have open primaries elections. And in New York, there are 1.2 million independent voters, with 54% of them being people of color. We're locked out of participating. This is one of the largest forms of voter suppression. And I'm really pretty pissed about it, I must say. I have to take a breath here. New York City is my hometown, and this really does hurt. As well as the fact that I am a poll worker, and I've been working the polls for several decades as an information clerk. I get to see several people come in to vote in the elections, and many of them being turned away because they are unaffiliated, unregistered, and like myself, independent. And they go away very disappointed, very frustrated. It's very unfair, and it's very undemocratic. I would say in a democracy, we should all have the opportunity to participate in it. And I would like to ask this commission, after so many, many years, to please consider putting open primaries before the voters to vote on. And let's bring New York City into the 21st century. I thank you for your time this evening, Commissioner.
Thank you, Yvonne. Vanessa?
Well, Yvonne was very well spoken, and I'm speaking on the same topic. And I also want to thank you for your volunteer time and the opportunity to be heard. My name is Vanessa Rudin. I've lived in Brooklyn for 30 years. I'm currently working on a tech startup, but have in the past founded a business microfinance institution that served under-resourced New Yorkers. And I also had other work strengthening federally qualified health centers. So most of my time has been spent in the nonprofit world. I have 2 sons in college. I recently received, well, the day before the primaries, I received an email encouraging me to vote in the primaries. There was only one problem: I can't. And it said how important it is to participate, which honestly got me pretty angry. If it's important to participate, then let me participate, either in an open primary, or if you prefer, let's have a third unaffiliated primary. You might say, well, you could join a different party if you don't want to be in the Democrat or the Republican, but Actually, I'm an issue-driven voter, so there isn't really a party because I might match this party at this time and this party at another time. And I don't believe in, it's kind of tribal, frankly, the party system. Um, so it's basically taxation without representation, and I really don't want to have another Boston Tea Party. So I've come to you, commissioners, and I came the last time that there was a meeting under the previous mayor to speak about the same topic. So I hope you'll take action. I want you to imagine being invited to a dinner party, but the only people who are allowed to eat are wearing blue or red. Yet at the end, everyone who didn't eat has to help clean up the mess. That's what being an independent voter is like. I mean, it's almost crazy, and it's almost crazy how inured I have been to the situation. Like, I'm kind of speechless about it. Democrats and Republicans talk about voter rights, but they don't really mean that everyone has rights. They mean that people on their political football team have rights, but it's not a football game. The rest of us don't have those rights. Those of us who want to vote our conscience, regardless of political tribe, aren't allowed in until the end when the decision has already been made, especially in this city. I mean, in some ways, Republicans are in the same position. The founding fathers, I'm sure, are turning over in their graves. They knew how bad political parties are for democracy. That's why parties aren't in the federal constitution. I was aghast to find out before the last commission meeting that New York actually does have parties in the state. That's not your fault. This is at the city level, but it's unbelievable. The level of disrespect for constituents is immense. How dare the city and the state marginalize millions of people, as Yvonne said, 1.2 million in the city alone in this way, and make us pay for this marginalization because we're paying for the primaries. If you truly want community cohesion, maybe look to the unaffiliated to actually temper the extremes of the two major parties. Anyway, I ask that you protect democracy. I know I've been a little bit forceful in my speech, but it is because of the injustice. And I think you can protect democracy and voter rights, which are talked about a lot, by changing to open primaries with ranked choice voting or a separate unaffiliated primary. That's more work and it's not as efficient. So I think open primaries would be the way to go. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for your testimony and for your passion on this issue. Questions from our commissioners? No, please know that there are many questions that we've asked of others who testified on open primaries in our other hearings, but I do have one quick question for you. So I wonder if in the course of the research that you've conducted on this and your experience with other independent voters, if you can help me to appreciate why independent voters, when they do have an opportunity to vote in New York, participate at considerably lower number of percentages than major party voters in general elections, right? So in last year, for instance, in the general election in New York, 63.5% of registered Democrats and Republicans participated. The percentage for independent voters was around 49%. Even minor parties like the Work Families Party, Green Party, et cetera, get over 50% participation in the general election from those who are registered in those parties. Why do you think that we're not talking about the primaries now, but in general elections, why independents perform at a lower percentage?
Well, this is just a guess, and then I'm sure Yvonne can give her opinion. I think it's probably twofold. One is that your denominator is all people who have, I guess it's all people who, oh, no, you're right. It's registered people who have not affiliated. So, okay, so forget that. Sorry. My guess is just probably the feeling of disenfranchisement. I mean, by the time that the vote comes, the major parties, but in particular the Democrat Party, because in essence, the Republican Party rarely decides, has already chosen who
But that's
the
what,
candidates
but
are.
actually that's what vexes me about it, right? Because if you're a registered Democrat or a registered Republican and you participated in your primary and you feel as if your vote in the primary was decisive, it would suggest that your vote would be significantly lower in a general election, right? Because you already had the opportunity to cast a ballot that determined, you think, outcome. And but interestingly enough, their voting percentage is much higher.
Well,
in
yeah,
generals.
I think there's a couple of reasons. One is, I mean, still, they're gonna get out to vote to, the Democrats are gonna go to vote to make sure the candidate that's being put forward is going to win, right? The Republicans are gonna go hoping that this year will be different, and occasionally at the state level it is. But I think in the end, if you didn't get to participate in choosing who was even on the ballot, I still think you should show up, and I do, but I can understand why many people wouldn't. Also, a lot of unaffiliated voters are young. And so younger people have to create the habit of
Okay.
going.
Yeah.
And the final thing is that the Democrats are really like, I think the reason I got that email is because there's an assumption I'm a Democrat, because maybe I've supported certain things that Democrats support. I've always been unaffiliated. So I got that email, but many unaffiliated voters maybe don't get the
That makes sense.
outreach from the
That makes
party.
sense. Yeah,
So-
that explains a lot, and so does youth. But thank
Thank you
you.
so much for your.
Thank you for helping me to fill the gaps in my knowledge. Liz Peralta and Carolina Salguero. Liz, are you here? Thank you. And Carolina Salguero, is Carolina present? Thank you. And again, if I've mispronounced your names, just correct me. I apologize.
Go first. Yeah, I was gonna set up a camera.
Liz, if you would.
I'll go first.
First, thank you for having me. My name is Liz Peralta, and I've worked in economic development for over a decade, from representing students, then minority grocers, then launching my own tech startup that helped feed over 1 million food insecure families. But the reason I'm standing here today goes back further than any job title. I've dealt with food scarcity since I was a kid, inside food systems that were supposed to help communities like mine survive when no big corporations wanted to be there in the first place. So abuelas, papis, the habibis, they stepped up to fill the gap. I'm a product of a single mother who came here from the Dominican Republic and found home and community at the bodega. I voted for Mayor Mondami because of that. What drew him to me was that he tells stories of the people he represents. He doesn't just talk policy, he makes you see the person behind it. So I'm going to try to do that tonight. During COVID, I was running the National Supermarket Association. Every morning and every night, our grocers got on a call together, and I'd hear the men and women sobbing. They had separated from their families to keep their stores open and their families safe from the virus that was killing so many, sleeping behind the counter because they refused to leave their communities without food. While they did that, elected officials stood in front of cameras calling them price gougers when the real markup was happening upstream with distributors not at the register. Those grocers built emergency infrastructure overnight. Senior hours, vaccines, free food, delivery solutions, all with their own hands and their own money. The crisis ended, and the people who used to call us for help building these solutions disappeared. I read the comments on the city's new grocery store announcement. So many people are excited, and that genuinely brings me joy. But I also saw people saying that the bodega guy, the independent grocer, is price gouging them. And that's not true, and it's not harmless. It's propaganda that teaches people to resent the very small businesses that held the city together. I'm asking this commission to help educate the public on that, the same way the city has taken on misinformation on other issues. These owners are not the problem. The actual problem is the buying power. A bodega changes more not because the owner is price gouging, but because it can't negotiate supplier pricing the way a chain can. And because I'm short on time, I'm going to jump to the end, which is my ask is that there's another model, a city-supported grocery hub, shared purchasing infrastructure that gives independent stores the same leverage a chain already has. My ask is this: it's time to reimagine the Economic Development Corporation. No more writing checks to consultants that make cool dashboards that no one ever uses. We reimagine the EDC by building the buying power solution alongside the government store and use the city's platform to correct the record on who's actually driving up prices. Since we only have 3 minutes, I kept it brief, but I'm happy to discuss the full-fledged plan to anyone who's willing to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Please, Carolina.
Okay,
Hi, I'm Carolina Salguero, or Carolina Salguero Sierras Espanol. I'm founder and ED of the award-winning maritime nonprofit Portside, New York. I'm here to speak about New York City's biggest open space. And that's our magnificent harbor, the waterways, the blue space, the wet part of the waterfront, and it's maritime. And so for Portside, maritime ranges from canoes to container ships. Much of the greatness of New York City is due to how we use the blue space for centuries. The maritime economy is why Wall Street is here, why USA Publishing is concentrated here, why we're the media capital of the country. It's why immigrants arrive from so many nations and create the glorious mosaic of New York. The Underground Railroad used the waterways, and so did the suffragette movement. So we are calling for a pro-growth maritime policy, for a new city agency for maritime, so maritime is no longer straining to grow. New York City had a maritime agency under changing names for over 100 years, and the last one closed in 1991. Now the waterfront is no longer managed by maritime experts. That means the Blue Highway Initiative, a revival of moving freight locally by water, needs to retrofit itself into spaces that should have been designed for it from the start, as I know the Maritime Voices advised. Last year, the Department of Buildings created a code for waterfront structures, and they had to create a special maritime advisory committee. For the 4th of July and our nation's 250th, you've got a great toll ship parade and Navy vessel parade next weekend, but those plans have been challenged by lack of pier space or lack of town docks where dinghies and harbor launches could bring passengers out to boats that are out on the anchorage due to lack of piers. So New York City's maritime management is chopped up between big new waterfront parks such as Hudson River Park, Brooklyn Bridge Park, Governor's Island, none of which would have centered maritime in their plans, and the work of a quasi-governmental nonprofit, the EDC, Economic Development Corporation, right, use the acronyms. So the ED's work to develop housing, they've got internal conflicts. Their work on housing, for example, conflicts with the city's maritime functions. So the Brooklyn Marine Terminal is under threat that way. My nonprofit, Portside, analyzed many ways the EDC fails in our 2022 campaign, Rethink EDC, which included covering the EDC's waste of public funds through avoidable mistakes, tangible harm to tenant businesses and nonprofits, unwillingness to work with communities, and a lack of follow-through to create the promised jobs and benefits, including not delivering the permanent home the EDC promised to Portside, a space big enough for a maritime hub, something that we proposed and actually became city policy, an EDC recommendation in the 2008 Maritime Support Services Study, and city planning recommended in their 2016 waterfront revitalization program. So like we've established policy and no one's let us do it. So NYC deserves better, a waterfront planned, designed, built, managed by maritime people. We need a pro-growth maritime policy and a new city agency, a waterfront that works for all. And a waterfront that works for all policy will grow jobs, working class jobs, many of them union jobs in sectors with an acute shortage of crew. This policy will connect people to maritime jobs most people don't know exist, since the communities ashore and the community afloat is not connected the way they once were. And this policy will unlock, I hope, recreational opportunities in an inclusive manner, making boats accessible to low-income communities as they once were, actually, in neighborhoods like where we are, Red Hawk, Brooklyn.
Carolina, just please know that the clock is wrong, and that you're really at time already. It was stuck. So if you
Oh,
could just get
I have
to
3 sentences. I was happy about that. I
Thank
noticed that.
Mhm.
Sorry. We salute Mayor Mamdani for identifying the EDC needs to evolve. And Portside and others are going further and saying that maritime should be taken away from the EDC completely, all of it. We also support the proposal of a group, Save Our Seaport, that there is a maritime community board created. Because maritime currently has no kind of grassroots representation. So in the archipelago that is New York, we need a better maritime manager. We need a waterfront that works for all. Thank you very much for your work. It's
Thank-
been inspiring watching you all tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. We're inspired hearing from you and so many other New Yorkers. You should know that Save Our Seaports has submitted testimony to the commission prior to this evening, and it's wonderful to have your affirmation of it. Questions from commissioners? Questions, thoughts? Liz, I really appreciate that you forced us all to remember the essentiality of those workers and those small business owners during the pandemic. You're right that there has been some reckless rhetoric in regards to the contributions that they make to communities. Thank you so very much for your able representation of their interests and of their commitment. So Appreciate that. Appreciate both of you.
Just wanted to add that there's a way, like, I'm not saying government supermarkets shouldn't exist. I think they should. But I think the real problem is buying power. And if we could create
Understood.
hubs to fix
Understood.
that, would be really
Understood.
sustainable.
It's a question of coexistence.
Exactly.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Oh, actually, Emma, I think has a question.
Yeah, I just have one question. Thank you both also for your testimony. On waterfront, yes. Have you considered or advocated for with folks in, I'm sure part of the coalition that you have, an initiative or an office, something out of City Hall or the administration that is not an agency?
Yeah, I'm decidedly in the camp that you want something more than an office. So Waterfront Alliance is there, and I've told them I'm very unhappy with that, and I think that's a milquetoast solution. We really need to have the assets really managed by maritime professionals, and so the EDC doesn't have those. One, for lack of time, something else I didn't bring up, the state DEC regulations and the way they go about things has hindered a lot of maritime things, park design, and the problem is there's no voice in New York City representing everybody. And so everyone's kind of terrified of them. The Parks Department themselves told me that they would welcome a voice like that. So
But they're not mutually exclusive necessarily. You could have an office that's tasked with waterfront that is run by or comprised of or listens to maritime professionals. It doesn't have to necessarily be an agency. You just don't want the status quo, which is right now where it's housed inside EDC.
yeah, EDC is bad, but I'm not alone. I think what we all want is to actually have the assets managed by maritime people. So maybe I'm misunderstanding that. So when I hear a mayor's office, I know all descriptions I've ever seen, they're like a liaison between other agencies, but then who is the other agency who's directly managing the asset?
Yep.
And so that's what we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
And also the waterfront, what is it called? The Waterfront Management Advisory Board is often invoked, which that was unbelievable. They refused to answer me and other people, completely transparent. They didn't meet for years. And I'm sorry, the first thing that occurs to me is like a bunch of suits, and I'm sorry. I mean,
No,
just like
okay.
they're not maritime people.
Yeah.
I mean, like in this city, for example, I used to be a photojournalist and I was sort of transitioning from documenting the harbor, after working overseas, documenting the harbor, to becoming an advocate. I was still a photojournalist when 9/11 happened. And I had a small powerboat. I kept my father's powerboat. He just died, 28 feet, modest little thing. That's how I get from Red Hook to the burning World Trade Center. I was the only journalist, photojournalist, to cover what's now called the boat lift evacuation. The media in town didn't cover it. I was flabbergasted. And I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm not going to be a journalist anymore. So the Coast Guard has determined that 750,000 people were evacuated by an impromptu flotilla of boats in a handful of hours, who go on to pump water on the fires, supply ground zero, set up floating cafeterias. This is how mariners roll. We would have had a blue highway 25 years ago if maritime people were on it, because the EDC just generates study after study. That's money, by the way. I know someone in our neighborhood in another nonprofit who refers to them as laundering money by now. Do the thing. We don't need more study of the thing. So when the towers were coming down, mariners made a solution. And that's like operational knowledge, because this is actually maritime. Because of how things change, the water's moving, storms, boats can sink, things can break. You have to decide on the moment. And I have worked as an artist, sort of as a photographer. There's something incredibly creative operationally about maritime people. They make solutions. It's the nature of the job. And everybody's been struggling for years. And unfortunately, the business end of maritime doesn't speak up very much. They're afraid to lose the contract or something.
Yeah.
So it's little nonprofits like mine who do this work.
Got
And then I get beat up by the EDC as a tenant.
And just
Thank, well,
a comment on the vice, on Emma's comment, EDC operates as it should, out of economic interest, and the waterfront needs to be seen as a public resource.
thank you for that. And I'll just note that the highest knowledge is operational experience. And you bring that, so we appreciate your thoroughness, your rigor, and your passion. And please know that there isn't anyone up here who is personally or politically attached to their suits. So
Right.
so we appreciate your candor.
It was like a different, it's like, I don't know, came to mind as
That's
opposed to
great, that's
people in
great.
greasy gear on a boat.
Our jackets.
It's great.
Sorry.
Thank you both.
Okay, thank you very much.
Tamara Al-Sarji and Pritha Mukherjee. Again, please correct my pronunciations. Tamara?
Okay. Hi, I'm
Hello.
Tamara Sharji, and I am a native New Yorker, and I'm a high school student.
Yay.
So,
Tamara, can you hold 1 second? Okay, they fixed the problem.
okay.
You can.
So I really want to talk about two things I'm passionate about. Yes, not all of it could be solved by the commission, but I would like to talk about improvements of cleanliness in the city as well as transportation. Lots of major cities around the world, including London, Paris, and Tokyo, have really good transportation systems. Anyway, the MTA runs about 24 hours while they pause. They are more efficient, there's less delays, as well as the fact that they're just cleaner. I would like to I would like for people to fund more for public transportation, as well as about 3.4 million to 3.6 million people take the subway every day, as well as people take the buses, the ferries, and I feel like there should be more emphasis on how to improve those systems, as well as I feel like we should improve the cleanliness of the overall city. Like, for example, the parks and recreation should like improve like the littering, as well as like the Department of Transportation, which is also not as commonly known, in charge of sidewalks and bike lanes. So I feel like we should like maybe tax people, fine people who litter and like make it more of a penalty. That, and also that money could go to like the Department of Sanitation to like more frequently clean up public spaces. As well as back to my point about public transportation, I feel since so many people take in a year, about more than 1 billion people take public transportation throughout the year in New York City. I feel like we should have a more efficient system and it should be taken better care of. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Preeta Mukherjee. I belong to a group of people in New York who cannot vote, who have a lot to say, but can't or don't know how, but yet dream of making this city their home, an international student. Today, I'm here to talk to the commission about two things I'm definitely passionate about and two distinct groups of New Yorkers who are systematically locked out of their public realms, those ensuring basic reproductive dignity and improving the city accessibility to international student population. First things first, we cannot talk about public space accessibility without talking about reproductive rights and bodily autonomy. When I say this, I refer to menstrual rights. Right now, New York City ranks near bottom 93rd out of 100 of the largest US cities for public restrooms per capita, with fewer than 1,000 operational toilets for 8 million people. But the crisis grows deeper, I'm afraid. A recent city council investigation published in December 2025 found that out of 100 restrooms in New York City, only 4 were equipped with machines which could deliver sanitary napkins and tampons. Currently, New York State is pushing forward legislation with the Total Access to Menstrual Products Act, also called the TAMP Act, and the state Senate recently passed Bill S3866 to mandate free menstrual products in public state buildings. And I really hope this commission does not simply rely on the state to give a directive, and New York City should proactively take up this and recommend the city's charter to incorporate standards already issued in the TAMP Act. Secondly, New York City is a vast city with its intensive subway networks, public spaces, and yet We as international students are restricted to our classrooms because we don't know how to navigate this city. Fortunately, I was fortunate enough to grow up in a big city like Mumbai, India. Not many students have that privilege. When I talk about international students, they have a tougher life than an average New Yorker. They navigate hyperdense housing markets on strict F1 student visas that heavily restrict their ability to go out or to work. For them, free public spaces like parks, open streets, libraries are living rooms and study spaces and workspaces. I really hope that these public spaces I really hope that this commission recognizes that these public spaces represent untapped economic potential. And by bridging these gaps, the city really wins when it includes everybody, even those who cannot vote or don't know how to navigate their bodily autonomy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both for your testimony. Commissioners, question? Anyone? I just have one question for tomorrow. I'd like to know when you might be eligible for some of us to vote for you for city council.
I think in like 3 years.
Okay, we will pay close attention, but both of you, thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your testimony. And I expect that there's probably more, Preeta, in your testimony that you'll attach to what you submit to us. So we back up the, thank you so much. Appreciate both of you. Mina Bragdon and Angel Martinez. Mina or Mayna, it's M-A-Y-N-A. Mayna, sorry, Mayna.
Thank you,
Angel, are you present? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mayna Bragdon. Thank you for having me here and letting me be heard. So for years, I've always complained about not being able to vote in New York City primaries because I'm an independent. I assumed every state was the same, didn't really think about it. I was like, oh, this sucks. Can't even have a voice. But then I started talking to my friends in other states. They're like, no, we can vote. What you talking about? I was like, what? So then I got annoyed. Okay, so I'm in New York City, and I can't vote as an independent. So as soon as someone reached out to me to testify tonight and I realized and had an opportunity to actually be heard, I was ready to go. Here I am, my very first ever city anything. From what I understand, 30% of voters in New York are independent, and we have no say as to who ends up on the ballot, no matter what election is happening. Yes, we get to choose in the final election from whom everyone else chose for us, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be allowed to help decide who actually belongs on the ballot. We pay taxes like everyone else. The choices put on the ballot affects us like everyone else. And we should be able to vote on all parts of all elections like everyone else. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Same topic. Good evening.
Good evening.
We the people. 3 words. Simple, timeless, profound. They are the opening words of our Constitution, the foundation of our constitutional republic, and the enduring promise upon which this nation continues to strive. Not I, the people, not some of the people, simply we. Within those 3 words lies an extraordinary idea that the strength of America does not come from one voice, one political party, or one ideology. It comes from all of us, from the people. The Constitution begins with we the people, and the Bill of Rights follows by protecting the freedoms and liberties of the people. Our freedom to speak, to assemble, to petition to our government, and to live as free citizens. Together, they affirm a timeless principle. Government derives its just authority from the people, exists to safeguard their liberty, and is strongest when every citizen has a meaningful voice. America has long been called the great experiment in democracy. What has sustained that experiment for nearly 250 years is our willingness to expand liberty, broaden participation, and move ever so closer to the promise of a more perfect union. Throughout our history, we have worked to include those whose voices were once excluded. That is the American story. The right to have our voices heard is the light that guides this experiment. And voting is one of its most powerful expressions. My name is Angel Martinez, and service has always been part of my life. I proudly served 8 years in the United States Army Reserve, and for more than a decade, I have served as an educator. Whether in uniform or in the classroom, my life's work has been dedicated to serving others, strengthening communities, and helping people find their voice and their purpose. When I enlisted, I did not swear an oath to a political party. I swore an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That oath was to the American people, all of them. Today, I stand before you as one of 1.2 million independent New Yorkers who are excluded from voting in publicly funded primary elections. Nearly half of America's veterans identify as independents. That makes perfect sense to me. We serve a nation, not a party. If we the people truly means all of the people, then independent voters should not be excluded from participating in publicly funded primary elections. My voice matters. The voices of 1.2 million independent New Yorkers matter. Opening our primaries would not be a radical experiment. It would continue America's greatest tradition, expanding participation, strengthening democracy, and ensuring that we the people includes all of the people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angel. Thank you. Thank you both. Questions, comments, commissioners? Thank you, Maynard. and
Thank you for
Angel,
your
your
eloquence.
questions and your, thank you. Thank you. Your service is noted with gratitude, Angel.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jonathan Burke on Zoom and Juan Carlos. Juan Carlos Castaneda in person are the last two witnesses in this evening's hearing. Jonathan, are you available on Zoom? Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Great, yes. The microphone is yours.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity to testify here. My name is Jonathan Burke. I am a general surgery resident and a graduating doctoral student in epidemiology, studying city budgets as determinants of health. I am also a volunteer budget analyst and researcher with the People's Budget. I've undergone training through the Government Finance Officer Association and examined hundreds of budget books for cities and counties across the country, including award-winning budget books. Few, if any, cities put forth proposed budgets on a timeline, format, and level of detail that would allow for real community engagement. This year, my team used Open Data's expense data along with custom Python code to format the data in a way that allows for the clear examination of proposed appropriations to agencies, units of appropriation, and budget codes. After dozens of hours, I still struggle to determine where the money is actually going in many instances. For example, the Public Assistance OTPS unit of appropriation shows a $1.3 billion increase for City PHEP's budget code in the executive budget, which is $235 million less than the preliminary budget, and that aligns with the Independent Budget Office estimate, while the Office of Management of Budget's summary reports $519 million in savings for the same program. There are also numerous examples of massive sums of money that do not have further breakdown, even in the budget codes, while important functions to the community, such as waste containerization, are not included at all. This opacity exists throughout the budget, and our public data remains only partially accessible even to someone with my level of experience reviewing it. The timeline compounds this problem. This year's executive budget was published May 12th and the open date on May 19th. Even with the more typical release date at the beginning of May, this leaves just over a month to extract, process, and analyze the budget before most decisions about the adopted budget are made. That is not enough time for genuine community engagement. I propose several changes to the budget development process and reporting. Give the community more than a few weeks between the executive and adopted budgets, and require open data to be available within 48 hours of any budget release. Expand the budget function analysis to all agencies, with functions defined collaboratively with community members and community-based organizations, not just budget and agency officials. Explain these functions in plain language. Pair this with a more detailed reference for the full budget, which is currently incompletely and inconsistently represented in its budget codes. This should allow for the differentiation of expenses for administration, overhead costs, contracts, and programs, and not leave vast sums of money without explanation. It should also include neighborhood level appropriations for place-based agencies like the Department of Education and Parks and Recreation. Any funding changes above a meaningful threshold, maybe 10, 20 million, should be flagged with a clear explanation of what function any increase will support and how any cuts may affect functions, programs, and staffing. Finally, this data should be output by the city as spreadsheets that do not require processing to readily understand and analyze. With this charter revision, New York City has the opportunity to lead the country by providing the time and transparency our budget process needs to cultivate real community engagement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Juan Carlos.
Yes. My name is Juan Carlos Castaneda, and I'm a resident of Chelsea. And the topic I would like to talk about is bikes off the sidewalks. Sidewalks are public spaces designed and designated for pedestrians and not for bikes or bikers. Currently, bikes are out of control all over the city, not only on the sidewalks, but also in the streets and in public parks. We need regulation for bikes and bike riders. Some examples that I consider they are an area of opportunity that will bring some income to the city are bike riders need to get a bike rider license. Bike riders, they need to be insured and protected. Bikes need to be registered and must have a plate number. Bike riders must wear safety equipment. Bike riders must respect traffic laws. Bike riders must respect traffic lights. There need to be regulations for delivery workers who are riding a bike. There must be a law to implement to ensure bike riders dismount their bikes on the sidewalks when they are in parks and public areas. We need safer streets for all New Yorkers, and I'm sure we can all coexist in a civilized society. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions, comments from our commissioners?
Excellent.
Thank you so much. We're grateful for both of your testimonies. And I'm pleased to say that we have managed to hear from every single person who had an interest in testifying in tonight's hearing. So I'm so pleased to be able to say that. We appreciate all of your contributions. We also appreciate contributions of our interpreters, our stenographer, and the wonderful staff of Medgar Evers College that made this meeting as accessible as possible. I will say that it's been many years since I've been here at Medgar Evers. I used to come here with some regularity to meet with a mentor of mine named Betty Shabazz, and it's just wonderful to be able to be in this community again. We are at the end of this meeting, but before we move to adjournment, I would like to just inform the general public that the next hearing of this commission will be held tomorrow evening in the Bronx at 5 p.m. in Lehman College, which is at 250 Bedford Avenue in the Bronx. It will focus on improving franchises and concessions, but like today, we will welcome testimony from all New Yorkers on topics related to the charter. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? No, we're doing it tomorrow evening. Yeah, we moved it. Sorry, is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned.